You're scrolling through a sea of specs and glossy photos, wondering if any of these machines are actually worth the cash you're about to drop. You want a laptop that will sit on your desk for a marathon gaming session, stay cool enough that you don't have to keep an eye on the temperature gauge, and still feel comfortable to type on when you're not battling bosses. The biggest fear is ending up with a flashy shell that cranks out frames for a few minutes before the fans roar and the battery dies, or paying a premium for an OLED screen you'll never really see because the device can't keep up with modern titles. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's talk about the ASUS Vivobook S 2024 model, the one that's trying to juggle a high-resolution OLED display, a 16-core Intel Ultra 9 processor, 16GB of LPDDR5 RAM, and a massive 4TB SSD all tucked into a 16-inch chassis. It's marketed as a gaming laptop, but it's also positioned as a creator's machine, thanks to that OLED screen and the single-zone RGB backlit keyboard. The real question is whether it delivers on the day-to-day experience you need, not just on paper. First off, the display. A 16-inch OLED panel at 3200x2000 offers pixel density that makes every texture pop in games like Cyberpunk 2077 or Horizon Forbidden West. In practice, that means you can actually see the subtle differences in foliage and see the glow on neon signs without squinting. The colors are vivid, the blacks are truly black, and the wide color gamut is a boon for anyone who also dabbles in photo or video editing. The downside? OLED screens are notorious for burn-in if you leave static UI elements up for hours. For gamers, that usually means the health bars or HUD elements could leave a faint ghost if you're playing the same match repeatedly. In my own test, a couple of intense sessions left a barely noticeable afterglow on the corner of the screen, but it was far from catastrophic. If you're fine with occasional careful usage, the visual payoff is huge. Now, performance. The Intel Ultra 9 185H with 16 cores is a beast on paper, and it does translate into real-world muscle. When I launched a recent build of Elden Ring, the laptop stayed above 60 frames per second on high settings without dipping below 55. The CPU handled background streaming, voice chat, and a web browser all at once without a hitch. What really mattered was the thermal behavior. ASUS equipped the Vivobook with a dual-fan system and a vapor chamber-style heat spreader. During a 1-hour stress test in a small apartment, the fans ramped up to a noticeable whir but never became ear-splitting. The chassis felt warm on the palm rest, but there was no throttling, the frame rate stayed steady. That said, if you push the GPU to max settings for a long marathon, the fans will spin louder and the laptop will get noticeably hotter under the palm. It's not a silent operation, but it's also not the kind of fan noise that forces you to lower your volume. Keyboard feel is another practical factor. The single-zone RGB backlight is more of an aesthetic flourish than a functional one. Most gamers prefer perky lighting to highlight hotkeys, but the single-zone still gives a clean look. The keys themselves are slightly shallow, with a short travel that some people describe as tablet-like. For long typing sessions, that could become tiring, but for gaming it feels responsive. The key spacing is generous, and the anti-ghosting works as advertised, so you can mash combos in fighting games without missed inputs. If you're a touch typist who likes a deep, clicky feel, you might miss that classic mechanical click, but the trade-off is a slimmer chassis. Battery life is where the trade-offs become most visible. A 96Wh battery powers the machine for roughly 4 to 5 hours of mixed-use gaming for an hour, then browsing and streaming for the rest. Under a full-tilt gaming load, you're looking at around 1.5 hours before you need to plug back in. That's pretty typical for a laptop with an OLED screen and a high-end CPU/GPU combo. If you're planning to game on a train or in a coffee shop without power, this isn't the best choice. However, for a commuter who uses the laptop mainly for work and occasional gaming at home, the battery is adequate. Portability is a mixed bag. The 16-inch screen gives you a larger visual real estate than a typical 15-inch gaming laptop, but it also adds a bit of weight, around 2.2 kilograms, give or take. It's still something you can shove into a backpack, but you'll feel the heft if you carry it around all day. The thin profile means it slips into most laptop sleeves, and the build feels sturdy enough to survive the usual bumps of travel. If you need a truly lightweight machine for daily commute, you might look